The ceasefire agreement has been derailed, and the war will continue. What will happen to gold and silver as a result? Well, we'll break it down and try to answer that question in this video as we explore. As most are probably aware, there was a massive blow-up in the White House with negotiations for a minerals agreement in Ukraine that could have led to a ceasefire and, at least on the surface, the beginning of some securities that may have prevented further incursion into the Ukrainian territory by Putin's forces. Nonetheless, this is a situation that most thought was pretty much a done deal. But it looks like that through the course of discussions in the public eye, it was derailed very quickly. Now, I don't want to get into the politics of this, but nonetheless, it's a sad situation that very well easily probably could have been avoided. And mostly, I think, by Zelensky, if he would have just nodded his head and said, yes, this sounds like a plan for peace. You know, at this point, the war has gone on too long, and it's really to prevent the killing of more folks on both sides. Sadly, at least based off the research that I've done, it's pretty much a stalemate with Russia taking the edge. In other words, the stalemate that could have broken through and really, in a sense, could have lost the whole country of Ukraine to be absorbed into Russian territory if it were to continue, even if we keep putting more money into it. And so I think the goal here was just to prevent that from happening further, to save Ukraine country, although with less territory. That's my understanding of it. Anybody else that wants to post their viewpoints, let me know in the comments section down below. I want to be as open-minded about this as possible. I don't like all of the killing there. I don't like that Russia invaded Ukraine. But sadly, we have to live with the reality that we find ourselves in. And I think most reasonable people would like to get peace at this point. Concessions will have to be made. Compromises will need to be made in order to get us there. But right now, this is something, if there's war is going to continue and no minerals will be harvested from Ukraine's territory, well, that means, I think, probably higher gold and silver prices. I think that's what is going to happen. And we could see it as early as tonight. And the markets will open at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. And we'll see how the Asian markets react to this news. And I think it will have some impact. And I think they'll probably will go up as a result of it, because war creates uncertainty. And the further that things go on, well, there could be a breakthrough of Russian forces into Ukraine, and they may just end up sweeping. I don't know. And we'll see how this all plays out. Some people feel this could lead to World War III if other nations actually send troops in. I think there was talk that France might do that, and others. And so we'll see. I mean, we don't want to widen conflict. We want this thing to end peacefully. But some concessions will need to be made from Zelensky and from Ukraine. But nonetheless, that uncertainty of a possible widening conflict, I think, is going to create uncertainty in the markets, and therefore gold and silver prices will react accordingly. Because I think, in a sense, the markets this past week, part of the reasons why we saw the prices go down, this very well could have been it, for the possibility that there could be a deal, a ceasefire agreement, and a deal for mineral exploration and harvesting of those minerals that the United States and Ukraine could work together. I think it was actually a pretty good idea by the Trump administration to pursue that end. But nonetheless, that was all derailed by this big blow-up. And, blame whoever you'd like. The fact that it has happened now creates uncertainty in the markets globally. And I think, in a sense, the precious metal markets could be affected by this as well. But again, the markets are fickle, and I could be wrong about that. I think they're going up. But, knowing my luck and, the markets open up, then we may see them open down. Who knows? But I do think usually things like this, when there's uncertainty, it leads to, the precious metals reacting in a positive way because of that uncertainty. We've seen that time and time again. Now, should you make a purchase based off of my assessment? No, do not do that, because again, I could be wrong. But just from what I've seen in the past and how this thing is playing out, I think that more than likely, especially now with the United Kingdom offering more financial support to Ukraine, essentially to keep fighting, that is going to be something that I think could prolong this war, which means more death. And even though the Ukrainians have fought bravely, they're literally running out of men. Where they're getting conscripts off the streets and the like, and forcing people into vans to take them into the front lines. And that's not good for morale, that's for sure. At this point, a lot of brave soldiers have died. And so it's really, there's just a lot more resources, manpower, literal manpower in Russia. And a lot of Russians have died in this war as well. So as things are being negotiated here, we have one side, the United States, we can't afford to put more than what we've done already. Much of that money has not been accounted for. And so it's got to end at some point in time as taxpayer dollars. And they've been given resources even before the invasion. And then you have the United Kingdom now pledging more of their resources to Ukraine. And is there any accountability as to where that money is going? I'd love to see it. I hope we find out, because apparently about 175 million of our dollars is unaccounted for, from what I understand, in Ukraine. Notwithstanding, this is a period of market uncertainty. Could things explode and get more tense between not just Ukraine and Russia, but also other European nations that Putin may see as a threat? And who knows what kind of response could occur there. So we have to be very careful with how we approach this situation. The markets, I think, will react to that, especially if there's other statements, especially if Putin makes another threatening statement. That could cause the price of gold and silver to go up as uncertainty sets in, and that could be a bad thing. We don't want gold and silver prices to rise based off of that kind of uncertainty, but we've seen that happen throughout these 4 years, really. Gold and silver have reacted to global uncertainty. Geopolitics plays a huge role in the markets in general, and gold and silver specifically are not spared from that. And this is why we hold them for periods of uncertainty, periods of instability and madness that we're seeing in the world today. And war is part of that. So I don't know. We'll see how it plays out. But nonetheless, the one thing that has remained constant throughout time is the fact that gold and silver are unchanging in that regard. They've always been something to fall back on in the worst case scenario. You've seen it in ancient Roman times. There's stories, and I've covered them on this channel, of folks who have found the gold and silver coins that have been hoarded away. Likely back in those days, they didn't have online dealers where they could buy their gold and silver, like Summit Metals, that sponsors the channel. Check out summitmetals.com. But they could have, they've put them in jars and they bury them, hoping to be able to find them and get them back again. The fact that they're still there and discovered all these years later means they didn't make it at one point or another. But they've always been a form of financial and economic stability throughout the world, throughout history. And that is unchanging to this day here in March of 2025. So hold on to your gold and silver, folks. And there's times like these where we need to be strong by having precious metals in our portfolio as a store of wealth against all the madness that we see in the world today. So let me know what your thoughts are down in the comment section below. One thing is for sure, history will continue to write itself, and gold and silver will certainly still be a part of the history books as they present themselves as stores of value, for sure. So let me know what your thoughts are down in the comment section below. Hope you found this video informative, insightful, and educational. Would like to extend a multitude of gratitude to each and every one of you for taking the time to watch, and to encourage you to please rate, share, comment, and subscribe.